Okay, guys, what's going to happen with AI? Is it really what everybody thinks it is? Is it really going to kind of overtake people's jobs? Is it usable? So on and so forth. What do I think is going to happen? So we got 2 years, in my opinion, for the mass majority of jobs. And they're either going to be mechanized or just displaced with AI. And you see a lot of this kind of happening in graphic design. Now there's certain industries that they're going to hold on. They're going to really hold on tight via, whether that be some kind of like thing, they're going to gatekeep it. Like lawyers, they're going to gatekeep. Like the AI will be able to look through the procedures of whatever your state is, whatever your country is, and effectively come up with an answer. But the judges and the lawyers went through law school, they went through all this, so they're going to gatekeep it, and they can rule anything they want in a lot of these situations, and you're kind of like left to try to appeal it and do all the stuff. If they don't like the AI being in there, they don't like you getting on your computer to ask AI a question, that kind of thing, they're going to keep it out. They're going to dismiss that, and they're going to give their lawyer buddy, because these judges are just lawyers, they got them put in the position of being a judge, they're going to give their lawyer buddy the benefit of the doubt over somebody trying to use an AI. They're going to fight that, and that's going to take 5 or 10 more years or whatever like that. Certain things, pilots probably aren't going to be landing planes, maybe in 5-10 years, but they're going to be sitting in the cockpit. Truck drivers, in a few years, they're not really going to be kind of manning the steering wheel, but they're going to be sitting there in the driver's seat in case they need to take control. It'll be that kind of thing. That'll give them a little bit more of a runway, that they don't get kind of completely X'd out. Now let's talk about like accounting, engineering, IT, graphic design. Obviously graphic design, and I would say that the whole kind of like branding of Midjourney is actually a very good way to put it. It's like you can really kind of come up with some conceptual stuff pretty quick, and then you're going to have to go in and maybe modify it, and it is midway through the journey. In a couple years, these AIs, I think that they'll get these models figured out a little bit more, and it's going to actually come up with more usable stuff. And we already see that, where they're coming out with like complete films where it's AI. There's these models that are sitting there and they're actually like looking at the screen, or just based on a picture, then you're able to add motion to it, all this kind of stuff. So obviously the influencer market, the kind of like models, that kind of stuff, like it's in serious jeopardy. The acting, all those things like that, any kind of graphic design, just photography, all that kind of stuff, it's going to kind of disrupt this. And I feel like we have a 2-year span of time that if you're using the AIs and you understand them and are able to allow them to benefit you to where you're doing the work of 5 or 10 men, then I think that you're gonna kind of benefit from it here in the next year or two, potentially. Now, if you lose some kind of high salary coding job, are you going to be able to jump on AI and are you going to be able to, sort of like get to launch right now, like a full-scale product, and replace the salary that you could have like had if you're working for an Amazon or Google or a Facebook or whatever? I think that's going to be tough. There are going to be some people that are going to pull it off, but I just think it's going to be tough because a lot of that stuff was somewhat overpaid, or just kind of like, since the stock market has sort of just been inflated, all these things have been inflated, their salary could have gotten inflated, and then for the actual work that they're doing, they're kind of getting sort of overpaid. But it's kind of like they're perpetuating a system that actually the foundation was built 15, 20 years ago, and it sort of had this kind of economic energy behind it, but it's unsustainable, like when things kind of draw back and things change. So that being said, for someone like myself, I'm sort of elevated with AI for multiple different reasons. And again, more of a jack of all trades. So, you know, yeah, can I do administrative scripting? Can I do a lot of this network admin stuff? Can I code? Can I do these different things? Application development, web development, all this stuff. Yes, a jack of all trades. AI can help me debug code and maybe quickly come up with like a script to like a Python script to check my calculations or something like that, instead of having to sit there and think too much about it. Now, at some point, people stop thinking and they rely too much on the AI. But for someone like myself that didn't have the AIs to begin with, I didn't have this kind of advantage 5-10 years ago, but I know how to do this stuff. I think it's going to be an advantage for me, for the guys who are coming up, let's say, you know, young bloods coming up, 18, 20 years old, 22, and then they rely too much on the AI and they didn't have to like struggle and kind of figure it out themselves. When the AI doesn't do the right thing, they're not able to sort of recognize that or be able to sort of back out of it and actually come up with a usable product. I think that's what's going to happen to a lot of those people. As far as some of the other stuff, so it's like, I think the people that know how to do this stuff, they're going to be able to move faster here for the next like couple years. And then I think after a couple years, 85% of this stuff that's out here in the economy, whether it's driving, whether it's, you know, again, we've seen in these cities, you know, there's self-driving cars and stuff, you know, so anybody that was trying to be like, well, I'll pick up some extra money doing Lyft or Uber or something like that. I mean, I think that they're going to be kind of like out of the equation. And then I've even seen things where there's like a robot stocking shelves, but it's being controlled by someone in the Philippines or a place where it's actually costs less to pay them, and they're controlling, they have like kind of like gloves on, and they're controlling like a robot half the world away to stock shelves and stuff like that. Distribution centers, they're even doing away with like the forklifts and stuff like that. People aren't going to be driving forklifts as much. It's going to be more automated tracking systems where it goes and it, you know, basically the robot essentially grabs the pallet and takes it down a tracking system. Like all these kind of things. So you think like how many jobs in manufacturing, it gets more mechanized, and then the AIs are making so many decisions. We saw the whole thing with United Healthcare. They were denying people's claims based on some AI. And, you know, people are going to get, ends up being a dangerous situation because they're denying these claims, they're canceling these people. We saw the fires in Los Angeles. They haven't came out with the fact that it was maybe AI related or something, but their system, their algorithm told them that let's not provide insurance to these people in Southern California because there's too much of a risk of earthquakes and fire and all this kind of stuff. So they dropped something like 75,000 people from State Farm insurance plans or something there in Southern California is recent as 6 weeks ago or something. So how much of this stuff where it's like people have been paying into this, paying into it for a maybe, and then they're just going to wash them out because some computer said so. Same thing with, if you just think about the way this stuff has been going over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, this kind of thing has already been happening. Obviously the mechanization and sort of automation of decisions. You try to get some kind of bank loan, well, it's a computer that's deciding. You're not going to be able to talk to a person and for them to actually make a decision. It's going to be the computer, and it's based on this credit score system that maybe got really kind of put in place in like 1989. It's really not that old. So again, you're just part of the system. You're just a number. See what the machine says. And at the end of the day, that's just going to amplify. That's going to go parabolic now. You're a number. You're just a gear in the equation. So I think for the people working IT, accounting, all these kind of things, there's going to be a little bit of a stronghold that, and I would say it would be with whether it be kind of unions or whether it be with, you know, some kind of associations and stuff like that for the lawyers, these real estate agents, this, that, and the other, that they'll be able to sort of still try to position themselves for the next, maybe like try to 5 or 10 years. But it's just kind of out the door. And at the end of the day, I think for now, if you know kind of how to do this kind of stuff, you're going to have to compete with the rest of the world, for one. because this is a globalized environment and stuff like that. If you're coding, you have to compete with people from Bangladesh or India, and that's nothing new, but it's just going to become more so. And then secondly, you're going to have to compete with the AIs running around. And then you know, if you're trying to sort of be an influencer, you're going to have to compete with the AIs and all these mass produced kind of like unauthentic kind of AI generated content. You're going to have to deal with that. So it's like, do you become that and try to pump out that type of content and try to go that route and try to be a master of these AIs for the next couple years? I think that's really kind of where it's at. And after that, everything's going to go back, personally, I think, to more working with your hands. And then the only opportunity is going to be stuff that it would be cost ineffective to buy a robot to sit there and do some of the stuff, like whether it be like painting houses or doing plumbing or doing this kind of stuff. And yeah, to some extent, I mean, I was out on the East Coast last spring and I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings and a robot brought the food to us. And I was like, wow. Then we go over to a hotel and there was no one working the front desk. It was a screen, and a chick was talking to us, and she was in the Philippines. And we were talking to her remotely, and she was answering questions. I'm like, dude, this is crazy, man. They're not even paying someone to be at the front desk. I'm talking to a person in the Philippines that's working the front desk. So again, this is just gonna, this is gonna amplify. That's gonna amplify. And at the end of the day, it's like, if you're technical enough to harness the AIs right now for the next couple of years, there's a runway. After that, everything goes back to stuff that it's going to be, again, not everybody's going to have like some kind of like, then after, you know, let's say like 5 or 10 years, they're not going to be able to buy one of those Tesla robots or one of these, you know, advanced robots, you know, from, you know, what is it? I keep wanting to say US Robotics or whatever that is, Boston Scientific. You see those freaking, you see those, you know, robots doing flips and stuff like that. It obviously it's going to be cost prohibitive, and they're going to have to work on cars. You're going to have to, you know, do roofing. You're going to have to do construction. You're going to have to do that. And then there's going to be a lot of competition, because what do we have? We have all these, we have a lot of illegals in the United States, and, you know, they're going to potentially be able to undercut the pricing and stuff like that. And you're going to have to kind of move and sort of find like where there's an opportunity. I saw up in Montana, they have a hard time getting people to do work during the summer. And so it was actually cheaper for people to take bids from companies that were in Arizona. And the people from Arizona would come up and do the work in Montana than to have kind of the local people that worked in Bozeman and Missoula and all that kind of stuff, because it's cost prohibitive to live there and actually do business there. So people are coming clear from Arizona to do work up in Montana, and it's going to be like that. And it's going to be player versus player out there, just like it's always been. And it's getting more and more and more competitive, ultra competitive. And guess what? Our money isn't worth anything. So you got to chase that paper to get them coins. You're going to have to be stacking something that actually has legitimate value, like cryptocurrencies. And you're going to have to create a stronghold with that. But obviously, eventually, the encryption is going to get broken at some point with these, you know, these new chips, with these quantum computers and stuff. Eventually, the encryption is going to get broken. I think a lot of things are going to be able to change. Things are going to change. So then it might come down to being able to hunt and being able to be a homesteader. Really, that's probably what it's going to come down to. So anyway, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think we have straight up 2 years, and then that's going to be all she wrote for the technical people and for people that are doing kind of professional type jobs? Leave a comment below, subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam, at Twitter, Hive, DTube, The Arena, Blurt, everywhere.